Welcome to Be Kind Connects. I'm your host, Shabnam Islam, and joining us in the studio today is Dr. Ruby Lathon. Now, Dr. Ruby Lathon is a certified holistic nutritionist, holistic health and wellness coach with a PhD in industrial systems and engineering. Woo! She is the director of Roadmap to Holistic Health and the host of Veggie Chest, a plant-based cooking show, and oh, so much more. Dr. Ruby, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Great to be here. I really appreciated being asked to join and can't wait to chat more.
You are somebody who is doing big things. Big things. But the one thing I really want to talk about is your shift to a plant-based lifestyle. Because the three big things that often get people to shift to a plant-based lifestyle is either for the animals, for the environment, or for their health. And so we here at Be Kind would love to hear your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it started with health back in 2007 when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and I was completely caught off guard and stunned by that. I didn't like the option of having to remove my thyroid and then be on medication forever. It just rubbed me the wrong way. And the only other option to a natural hormone was a pig's hormone. And I was like, that doesn't sound, I don't want pig DNA in my body either. So I was like, there's got to be another way. And so I said, I'm just going to research and find out, because I've heard other people healed of cancer. So it was, follicular carcinoma in the thyroid. So about a little less than a 2-centimeter nodule that was cancerous. And so I just started researching. I was open to everything. I tried some crazy stuff. So I had no agenda, but what came up repeatedly that made the most sense and had the most research was plant-based living and holistic living. And so I switched to that and had to just learn how to cook again. And I wasn't a big meat eater anyway. I was just mostly eating heavy dairy. Mostly grew up vegetarian, so I was heavy on everything cheese, because that was just the replacement. When you go out to eat, you don't have the meat ravioli, you have the cheese ravioli. You don't have, the turkey sandwich, you have the cheese sandwich. So it was always, heavy on dairy.
Which is a massive inflammatory, right?
It is.
So when you start doing the research, you're like, because the one thing I have to say, Dr. Ruby, is that I love that you said, I don't want to have pig DNA in my body. But for many people, when we're consuming animals, we ingest that. But I love that you were talking about you were vegetarian. So this concept of taking this kind of medicine that's based off of animal testing was just something you were just, it was the antithesis of what you wanted to do.
It just didn't seem right. And the other thing is, so I came at it from a health perspective, but, eventually I came at it from an animal perspective, because I always thought being vegetarian was a kind approach. I was like, you don't have to kill the cow to get the milk. They live a happy life. They're out grazing in the pasture. But then when I realized, after I started doing the research, that is so far from the truth. That is so rare that a cow is actually living its pleasant life, giving normal milk when it has a baby. When I found out that they actually take the milk from the baby cow and give the baby cow a milk substitute with supplements in it, and give that milk that's supposed to go to the baby cow to humans that inflames us, it's like, that's so ridiculously stupid. Why would you do that? Why would you take the milk from the baby, give the baby a separate milk, and then give us something that is highly inflammatory, cancer causing, and all the other things? So, and I didn't know how about factory farming. I was under the illusion, I was asleep under the illusion that it was all happy cows out there, like on the farm that my mother grew up on. They had their own cows and pigs, and they treated their animals very well. But they didn't have, intense housing and feeding, and this where cows never get outside and they're standing in their own waste and keep being pregnant for their entire lives. That's not how they raised animals. So when I realized that that was the process, I was like, I would have stopped this a long time ago if I knew that's what was happening. And I thought I was being compassionate because I wasn't killing the cow. And so I was, like I said, I was heavy on eggs and dairy as the main protein sources. And then lots of processed, even veggie meats and, frozen dinners, that kind of thing. Because I traveled a lot. So I was always keeping the freezer stocked with stuff. So when I started doing the research and the plant-based diet thing came up, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to switch. The cheese thing was hard because you're so used to using it. And I realized that after I stopped eating it altogether for like 28, 30 days almost, I lost the craving for it because I started with, I'm just not going to eat it at home. I'm not going to buy it and keep it in the house at all. So I'm only going to eat it out because it's harder to eat regular. But this craving was still there. So I was like, let's just cut it all together, see what happens. And that's what I did. And then I realized I don't crave it at all anymore. And I tried it again after that 30-day period of not having it. And it did not even taste the same. I did not like it anymore. And I think part of it was because I was reprogramming my brain about what food is and how it reacts to the body. So I would remind myself, why am I not eating cheese again? Oh, because it's mixed with pus and blood, and it's cruel, and it's inflammatory, and it's all these things that it feeds can't. So by the time I go through that list, I internally changed how I felt about it, which changed my desire for it. So I no longer had to battle with, should I have it or not? Because now I changed my desire. And so it made it very easy from that perspective. And so I think that's an important part of changing your diet.
I think behavior changes is an essential part of what we talk about, shifting to a plant-based diet. But, so often so much people are stuck in the argument of, well, this is my culture. This is the way that I was raised. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your culture and the way that you were raised, because I love that you said that you were actually raised on a small mom and pop farm. Could you tell us more about your history?
Yeah, so, I wasn't, my mom was. So my mom is like one of 10 kids in Alabama. I did grow up in Alabama. So she grew up way out in the red clay in Tallahassee, Alabama, which we spent our summers every summer out there. So I kind of knew about it secondhand, but my grandmother had a big farm. We would be out there in the summers picking peas and shelling peas and just eating natural muscadine berries and wild berries. And so we're just very used to the earth. At that point, they didn't have any more animals. It was all just veggies and gardening. So that was a big part of my upbringing.
That's amazing. And what I love about you is your education. That you have a PhD in your engineering and industrial systems. And first and foremost, I've only known one engineer who is a systems specialist that is now using his education in the vegan sphere, and that's Dr. Silas Rao, the creator of Climate Healers, who I feel like now I equate you to this level of amazingness. So how are you using your former education as a PhD towards your business roadmap to holistic health?
Yeah, so it was a big thing for me to kind of leave engineering first, because I spent a lot of time. My undergrad's in computer science, and all my research work is in artificial intelligence and all that type of stuff. And I was working in defense, but I realized I didn't like it. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to optimize weapon systems anymore. And so when I was in recovery, that I gave myself the year to recover from the cancer, I decided I was just going to figure out what I really wanted to do. And if that meant leaving engineering, that was okay. And so I did just that. I switched jobs. I moved from Albuquerque to Washington, D.C., where I live now. I started working for a nonprofit, PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, that teaches people how to use food as medicine to heal and prevent disease, which is a job I would do for free if I could. And so I just decided to follow my heart and my gut instinct. And basically, I said I re-engineered my life. I was talking to someone one day, and I was just telling them, how I got to what I was doing now. And they were like, you basically re-engineered. I said, I did. I re-engineered my life. And that is, so how I use my background now is I have a very logical, closed loop way of thinking. When I say closed loop in engineering, when you're doing programming, you have to close all the loops or your program won't work. It'll just be in an endless loop going. And that's when you see pages that never load because something happened. And so you think in a very logical way, and you think of all the contingencies, you think of all the holes in the argument, you think of all those things, because by the time you get to a PhD in engineering, you're very much ensconced in that type of thinking, that you don't leave anything to chance and everything has to be backed up with research or precedent or something like that. And so having that background and coming into this space, it serves me really well because I believe what I believe based on research and not just emotion. I believe on what makes sense, the logic of it, so I can walk people through their healing process in a very logical but compassionate way.
With evidence, which is
Absolutely.
important. We are in a world that lives with fake news and inappropriate and tons of misinformation. So finding quality coaches, professionals, and information is imperative. So
Absolutely.
I think our audience would love to know, what is a holistic nutritionist and wellness coach?
So in holistic nutrition, we're looking at things as a whole. So not just the food or supplements, but everything that affects your lifestyle, because there's not just, we don't live in a vacuum, everything affects you. So from how much sleep you get to your relationships to, if you get outside regularly, exercise. And the reason I gravitated to holistic nutrition is because that's how I treated myself in healing. So I started with the food, right? I started with, cleaning up the diet. And then I went heavy into the supplements to help me recover and things to help my body detox and build my immune system. But I realized a big piece that I also had to do was detox my relationships, to detox the way that I was dealing and talking to myself, my inner voice, how I was dishonoring what I wanted in an effort to please other people.
Yes.
So I had to find my voice in this process of, not living in this way that I think I'm supposed to, but actually living in the way that you want to. And so I had to break out of that. And I allowed myself to use the cancer as my excuse to say no to everything I didn't want to do. I'm not doing it. I was like, because I didn't have the courage initially, but I'm like, I have a golden ticket now. No, I'm not doing it. And no one is going to question me. So I'm just doing what I need to do. Leave me alone. I am recovering, and so people kind of back up with that. And so now, you practice that so you don't need an excuse. But if you have it, use it until you get used to using your voice and used to standing up for yourself and used to doing whatever it is you need to do. And a part of what I realized in Ayurvedic medicine, I started, working with someone who was studying that, and kind of where you get sick can sometimes be an indicator of where you need to evaluate things. So like the thyroid wraps around your vocal cord, and mine was enlarged and it had the tumor. And when you think about it, the doctor says, well, if it continues to grow and enlarge, it can impede your vocal cord. You can either lose your voice or be very hoarse. And I'm like, that makes sense because I have not been using my voice. And now I'm going to start. I'm not going to be the people pleaser. I'm not going to worry about people being upset with me. I'm going to heal the childhood traumas and come into who I really am. And so that holistic approach is a big part of any illness recovery, but especially cancer recovery, because a lot of times we've been dealing with stuff we've been stuffing down for so long that it then manifests as a cancer to make you wake up and pay attention.
And I love how you talk about how a holistic approach is truly a holistic approach. And so the roadmap to holistic health, your business can't just really it runs with you at the helm, but all of these services and practices require you to have quite an amazing team. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it started with the coaching, and then from the coaching, it grew to, I would give people recipes and they're looking at me like, I've never heard of these foods. So I started doing videos to show them how to make the foods. And then I had some very ill clients who were like, can you just please make the food for me? I have no cooking skills. And I said, this is a big sacrifice, but I'll do it because it's a lot of work. So I started making food for like 2 or 3 of my clients. And then later I said, I want to formalize this because I get the requests so often, that then I started a food delivery service for anybody, but using the recipes that I make up or that fit a healthy lifestyle that will help you get well. So if you're in cancer recovery, these recipes work, or these meal plans work. If you're just trying to stay healthy or lose weight, or these meal plans work. And so everything that I've done has kind of grown out of a need that I see or request that I've gotten that just makes sense. So it's like an organic grown system of folks, people who help me put these things together. And then I developed online courses because I can't coach everybody, so that people can take for cancer recovery. And one of my favorite courses is how to get out of the life you created and into the one you really want, based on, my personal experience of how I was able to do that. And so, because again, part of that recovery isn't just about the illness, it's about your life and your life manifesting this illness, and how can you track that back.
I love that because, when we talk about behavior change, when we talk about this shift, often we think it's because someone's suffering from something. So are these courses and these services offered for everyone, or is it just for people dealing with diseases, clinical obesity-related diseases?
Yeah, so, the cancer course is really for people dealing with it or wanting to prevent it. But the how to get out of the life you created is for anybody. It's really a general, like, I'm not happy here and I want to move from A, to Z. And what's funny is one of the people who helped me develop the course, because he was editing the videos and doing everything, he actually followed everything in the course and totally changed his life, moved to a new city, started totally over it, was like so happy. He's like, why am I staying here? I don't even like where I live. I'm gonna do what you're saying. It's a video. So he was like my first test case that this really works.
That's inspiring. And it's never too late. I think that's the thing that is the message. It is never too late to change and get the life that you want.
That is true. Yeah, I would just say, because we're such an age-centric environment where, you're 40 or you're 50, it's too late. It's never too late, ever.
And I love this because you are the prime example of this. You have a PhD in your engineering industrial systems. You give up your career, your life work in this field. Yeah. You then start working with Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine, and then you're doing things like being part of the groundbreaking documentary, What the Health. How was that experience?
That was phenomenal. It was really great. I almost missed the beginning because I happened to have a spill and broke my foot, which is like rare. And the funny thing is, I broke it in the same place I broke it like years before. And I think I was ready for change. But anyway, and so I had to have a surgery to repair it. And it was like 2 days before.
Oh, no.
They were going to be in town. But I did so well through the surgery. I had zero pain. I had almost no inflammation. I didn't have to take I think I took 1 Tylenol. And after a major foot surgery where they had to put all the little pieces of the bone back together.
Oof.
But I attributed it to my diet because I was eating clean. And so I was able to do it, So I hobbled down on crutches to the interview. But yeah, they were so nice, and we had no idea. They didn't even have any idea it was going to be that huge. I was just telling my story, and I didn't know what pieces, there was a long interview, so I didn't know what pieces were going to be used. But when I saw the final video and they let us, those who participated, see it in advance, I just said, whoa, this is amazing. And I was like, am I biased because I'm in it? I was like, I don't think so, because I'm so hard hitting and so poignant. It just like, I was like, this is going to be,
It was great.
this is going to be big. Yeah. And so when we got the response to it on Netflix, I mean, my inbox went crazy. I had to hire an assistant because I just couldn't even field all of the requests and the notes, and social media went crazy. It was like, I was totally caught off guard by that, and it was amazing. And so many people, I still get emails today, and it's because this came out in like 2017, and people are just saying how this changed their life. I mean, this was one of the best movies, I think, out there, because so many people changed, some overnight, because of that movie.
It's true. I mean, it was straightforward, to the point, and provided evidence, which is exactly what I want to talk about here. What is your perspective about our current food system? Like, what do you believe is going on with the USDA's food guidelines, like their most recent My Plate or the former Food Guide Pyramid? What is your perspective?
So our food system is the way it is because of capitalism and greed. And we don't live in a true democratic government. And none of what I'm saying is opinion. It is backed up by, when you look at, because I worked in government lobbying for healthier school lunch programs, for the National School Lunch Program. And I had to see up close and personal that the decisions were not made about nutrition or what's best for the public or what's best for children. It was made by who is lining the pockets of these senators and representatives, who they will and will not upset, how they will ensure that they get elected again the next season, how much ruckus it's going to cause, and who has the biggest pocket, who's going to make her biggest contribution. So that is why we have the system that we have. So the USDA is not this wonderful, beautiful government organization that's like our mother looking over what's good for the people. No, it is entirely influenced by money. And those people who are on the USDA often then go and work for the industries that they're supposed to be regulating, or have come from the industries that they were being regulated by. So there is an interest. There's a conflict of interest. They're buddies. How are you going to regulate your buddies who has promised you a job when you leave here to be CEO or vice president of a huge corporation if you make the right decisions that will favor the dairy or meat industry? So it is just a sham. And that's why we have the food system that we have.
I love that you say that, because even the USDA says this. On the USDA's 2020 food guidelines, they say 8 out of 10 Americans are confused about what they're supposed to be eating. But the USDA is telling us what we're supposed to be eating. In addition, they even say we spend over $147 billion on obesity, $245 billion on type 2 diabetes, and $316 billion on heart disease. All because of usually our food system. So,
and then they subsidize the foods that are the unhealthiest, the sugar, the corn syrup, the meat, and the dairy, because they've been set up to do that. So it's such a conflict of interest. And then we have the actual food industry that wants to make the cheapest food to sell you and keep you addicted, so they continue the products. And that's where the capitalism come in, because it's not about, let's give the public healthy food. What food can we get to make sure these customers come back repeated? So let's put high sugar, high salt, high fat, so you're addicted, so you can't eat just one chip and you won't stop at one soda. So, and that's where the greed and capitalism comes in, where it's just been hijacked because it's all about shareholders and the money. So they're just going to make the cheapest product with the poorest ingredients, with the most chemicalized, cheap things to make, that will keep the food on the shelf forever for the longest amount of time, because it's not about nutrition. It's all about the money. So when you have a government that's being driven by money, and then you have a food industry that is all about the money, you have a sick society that we see today. Do you know how much more it costs me to have an organic food service than if I just got the regular crap from the places? It's so much more. And that is so unfair when it should be the other way around. Something that is less processed should cost less money, but you can get a burger that's more processed that costs less than a bowl of strawberries, an organic bowl of strawberries, which is what I would want to eat. But it costs more to eat healthy because of our sick system. And so it's like we have to fight back against that.
And then let's not even get started about what they serve people in the hospitals. What they serve our sick. Oh my God, eye roll and then more. Trust me, this interview will go another 2 hours if we start talking about that. Because between the evidence that I have and you have, it's just going to go downhill. But what I really think that you could do for us, Dr. Ruby, is share with our audiences, what are 3 strategies as a behavior change coach that you provide to those that have been very successful to committing to a more plant-based lifestyle?
So first is planning. It sounds like a cliche, but you really do have to plan what you're going to eat. And so, because especially when you're new to a healthy lifestyle, because it's so easy to fall back into the old habits. If you don't know what you're going to eat for the day, by the end of the day, your willpower is all used up and you're just going to fall back into bad habits. So number 1 is planning. 2 is to educate yourself a little bit on nutrition. What nutrients do you need? But doesn't have to be difficult. And one of the main reasons is we have something simple like eat the rainbow, which means eat lots of colorful foods, and you're going to end up getting all of the high antioxidant foods. You're going to end up getting the higher protein beans, nuts, and seeds. You're going to end up eating all the greens that you need because when you're eating colorful, we're not talking Skittles, we're talking colorful fruits and veggies, then you're going to get what you need. So you want to keep it varied. You want to, explore new fruits and veggies and recipes that you've never tried before. You want to expand and not constrict what you're eating, because a lot of people focus on switching to eating plant-based and constricting. No, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. And then that gets a very boring and discouraging. So we want to focus on expanding what we're eating, not constricting what we're eating, and let that crowd out what we don't want to eat. And then focus on the green foods, because those are the healing foods. I healed myself with just the food and supplements and mindset. And nothing else. And so you can do the same thing and avoid the diseases by just eating a healthy anti-cancer diet every day.
That is amazing. Well, Dr. Ruby Lathon dropping knowledge bombs left and right for our VCon community. Wow. And we are just so excited that you were here to share all of this information with all of us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And that wraps up this episode of VKind Connects with the vivacious, intelligent, and mover, Dr. Ruby Lathon. To learn more about her services, her programs, and live events, please check out the website on our screen. To watch this episode and many more, go to www.vkindconnects.com, and we look forward to seeing you next time.